Welcome into the 143, the virtual one, of course. This is under review, coming at you live with episode 51.
That's right. We are 2 weeks away from being back in the studio together, where we will celebrate the 1 year anniversary.
The all-time
And
podcast coveting spot.
as we get close, it does not feel like it has been a year.
It really
Time
doesn't.
has for sure flown by.
Time flies when you're having fun, and this is a lot of fun for us. We love bringing y'all episodes, and we're here with another one for episode 51. Before we go any further, we just want to say here at Under Review, we are sending our thoughts and prayers to Damar Hamlin, a player on the Bills who last night he collapsed onto the field and suffered a cardiac arrest. An ambulance came out onto the field. They gave him CPR. We've never seen anything like that before. The updates have been he's in the hospital. His vitals are okay, but he's in a medically induced coma with a breathing tube, and he's in critical condition. So everybody needs to be praying for him, for his family. Very scary situation that happened last night. It's still going on right now.
Yeah, our thoughts and prayers are with him and that family and everyone involved in that situation. You know, it was kind of a scary situation. I don't think I've ever seen anything like that before, but we're just praying for that family and hoping that they get through this situation.
Absolutely. It's very scary. The game has been postponed to nobody, like they haven't decided when. It won't be this week, but they're just going to give the players some time to hopefully give. It's more for Damar's situation. Hopefully it improves, as everybody is hoping it does as well. For our stat of the week, brought to you by Andrews Logistics. TCU and Michigan played this week for one of the semifinals in the college football playoff. And the stat is TCU ended up winning. And the stat is that TCU started this season as an unranked team, and they have made their way to the college football playoff championship, which will be Monday night at 7 p.m. Central Time. But congrats to TCU, and as well as Georgia, who also made it in as the early season favorite to make it in. So we had the outlier who nobody thought was going to make it. We have Georgia, who everyone thought was going to make it, and they will battle head-to-head Monday night. We're excited for that game. They were great semifinal games, but congrats to both teams.
Yeah, it was an interesting college football playoff weekend. Georgia, I mean, they were two very high-scoring games, but Georgia came out on top, and they will be competing for the championship against TCU.
Absolutely.
Now for your player of the week, it was Mr. Mike Evans. He put up a absolute showcase against the Carolina Panthers. Okay, 10 receptions, 207 yards, and 3 touchdowns. That is
Crazy.
Definitely the best game of his career, and it was ultimately what put the Carolina Panthers in the grave and sends the Buccaneers to the playoffs. So good for them, because playoff Tom we get to see playoff Tom again.
And
one more time.
Possibly one more, maybe not. You don't know. At this
Who
point,
knows?
you just take it year to year. You appreciate the GOAT for what he is. They've had a rough season, honestly, but luckily for them, their division is not good, and they were able to squeak into the playoffs as the number 4 divisional team. But yeah, Mike Evans went off yesterday for sure and cooked the Carolina defense, and it was a great performance from him. One that has been missing all year, so good to see that out of him. Definitely. So this week's show is really just about some NFC situations for the playoffs. There's 1 week left in the regular season, so teams that are fighting for spots, teams that are fighting for different seeds, and right now the AFC is kind of set. Last night's game would have been a very big decisive game, but that game obviously was suspended. So we will be talking mostly about the NFC today.
Nothing really changed in the AFC. Everything that was huge was in the NFC, and one huge, I would say, upset was the Packers absolutely destroying the Vikings, and that ultimately kept their playoff hopes alive, because if they win, I think they're at a win and in situation
Yes, they are.
next week. And so that was a huge win for them. I don't think anyone expected the Packers to come out and just stomp all over the Vikings. And
And
then the Eagles
yes,
losing to the Saints. Very, very tragic if you're an Eagles fan,
which
but
we are
very,
not.
very good if you're a Cowboys fan, because there is a chance, there is a world where the Cowboys win the NFC East and
And
possibly the NFC.
it's a
Very,
very,
very.
very unlikely scenario. But if Philadelphia loses this week, well, first of all, let me just say this. No matter what, the Cowboys have to win. So we'll say that. They're playing the Commanders. They have
Absolutely.
to win that
They have
game.
to win.
So if the Cowboys win that game and the Eagles lose their game, we take over the NFC East. So we get the number 2 seed in the playoffs. But if the Eagles lose and the 49ers lose, then the Cowboys will take the number 1 spot. So there's a lot of ifs there, and most likely the Cowboys will be the 5 seed in the playoffs and play the Buccaneers first game, week 1.
I don't think that um, I don't think that the 49ers are going to lose next week. I mean, they needed to lose one of these last 2 games. It was either this week or next week, and I think we had a better shot at them losing this week to the Raiders. It went to overtime, but then the Raiders QB, Jarrett Stidham, threw a game-losing pick, and then the 49ers went into field goal range to kick it and ended in overtime. So we are praying for the Cardinals to clutch up for the Cowboys.
The Cardinals are on their like 4th string quarterback, not even their 3rd string. I don't remember his name. It's not a very likely scenario at all. So at this
But it's
point,
just at this point, we're holding out for the NFC East
yes,
and
absolutely.
a home playoff win for a home playoff game for round 1.
So basically, if the Eagles lose and we win and we get the NFC East, we're looking at not just one home playoff game, but if we win that home playoff game, we definitely get another one. So that's at least 2 straight home playoff games before the NFC Championship. And if, the 49ers were to lose at one point for them, we get the home field advantage for the NFC Championship. So we definitely want that NFC East, but also the number 1 seed as well.
I mean, a home playoff game would be huge because I think as we sit right now, we would be going to see Tom in Tampa Bay, which is, I mean, it's pretty scary, and we're the Cowboys, so we like to not show up in those big situations like that. So going to see Tom in Tampa Bay could be very detrimental. Obviously, I would like to believe that the Cowboys would win, but as Cowboys
It's
fans, we
tough.
know that they would find a way to lose.
That brings me to this question I have for you, Nick. What right now, and we might even have the same team for this, but right now, out of all 7 teams that are currently in the NFC that are in, what team would you like to face in the playoffs? And I think after
Well,
their game on Sunday, we have an answer.
the team that I would like to face in the NFC. That's actually a good question that I have not thought about. Okay, definitely, it's definitely not the 49ers because
Absolutely
they are
not.
a powerhouse. I mean, the Vikings are a
It's the Vikings.
possibility
It's the Vikings.
because they are not showing up in big situations. I mean, they got destroyed by the very, very weak Green Bay Packers team. Obviously, they're in no danger of losing out of the playoffs or losing the AFC North, but I'm sorry, the
Yes.
NFC North. But I mean, that would be a team that I would not mind
I
facing in the playoffs.
I think we've seen them now. There are 2 primetime games that we've seen them in recently. Against the Packers, against the Cowboys, they got blown out in both. The other games that have been at 12 o'clock, they've won barely at the end. So I think for me, it's definitely the Vikings. Maybe the Giants, but the Vikings for sure. The Vikings have just shown that when the lights are the brightest, they can't put it together for some reason and win a game. The Packers are hot right
And
now.
also,
Like
I believe the stat. I might be botching it, but I believe the Vikings are 10-0 in one-score games.
yes,
So they're getting blown out or they're barely winning. Is basically what we're seeing from the Vikings. So I would really not be all that fearful of seeing Minnesota in the playoffs.
I think what it is, and man, I love Kirk Cousins. I love him, but I think what it is Kirk Cousins when the lights are brightest. He cannot find
He's
ways
just
to
not
win the game.
clutch. He's a serviceable, very decent quarterback that you can win a lot of games with, but I think the underlying quality is that he's not clutch.
No, he's not. And right now you don't want to face the Packers. They're hot. You don't want to face the Niners. You don't want to face the Eagles. You don't want to face the Bucks because of Tom Brady. You just don't.
Mm-hmm.
You don't. I mean, the Giants. I
And
take the Giants, I guess, but
absolutely.
and the
And
Cowboys. I take the
I know a
objectively.
lot
I
of
take the
Vikings
Cowboys.
fans are probably like, "Oh, well, Kirk Cousins was a part of the biggest comeback in NFL history." Well, I mean, you got to put it into perspective, right? It was against one of the worst teams in the NFL. Okay, it was more about the fact that your defense and offense was just horrible in the first half. Got
Yes.
absolutely shut down by the Colts, and then they finally came alive in the second half. But obviously, props to them for getting that. But I think that just goes to show that there is a flaw in that Vikings team.
I think right now, honestly, the scariest team in the NFC. I mean, when you see a team that loses their first string and second string quarterback, throws in Brock Purdy, who is the like last man in the draft, Mr. Irrelevant. Brock Purdy is 4-0 with that team. Okay? If they can take the last pick in the draft and turn him into an all-star on that team with that defense, that's the scariest team in the NFC right now. Maybe even the scariest team in the playoffs. I don't want to face them, and so it would be nice if we don't have to do that um, because they
I
they
mean,
scare me.
offensively, it seems like they have not skipped a beat. Actually, honestly, I would say offensively they got better. I mean, they were still winning games with Jimmy Garoppolo, but it seems like they're scoring more points offensively than they were at the beginning of the season. Like Brock Purdy has finally found a way to get George Kittle involved. I mean, he struggled all year. Obviously, I understand he was injured for a good part of the beginning of the season, but he has been a shining light for the 49ers these last few weeks with Brock Purdy, and he has really not skipped a beat, and the 49ers are looking incredibly scary right now.
And Christian McCaffrey has really just come alive. He's having a couple 100-yard rushing games, and he's obviously great pass catching back. So the 49ers and the 49ers defense is the best in the league. So you can't, there's no way you'd want to play this team in the playoffs right now, looking the
They
way
have
that
one of
they
the
do.
best coaches in the league as well. Kyle Shanahan is phenomenal. He has created an environment where Brock Purdy can be successful, and if he does his job, they win games, and that's what's been happening.
And the Eagles are starting to show some signs of weakness, not just because Jalen Hurts is out, because I don't want to hear it, okay? But I know Jalen Hurts is out, but I guarantee you Jalen Hurts comes back in. If they play Tom Brady that first game, I'm taking the Bucks because I don't think that Jalen Hurts
Absolute,
is clutch.
absolutely.
As we've talked about this many times, we won't talk about it now. But when Jalen Hurts was put on the spot, he beat the Colts. I
Wow,
don't I can't
good
name.
for him.
So did
He
Kirk
beat the Colts. You
Cousins.
want to know who else beat the Colts? Like 13 other teams in the NFL right now.
So I don't think that Jalen Hurts is the deciding factor for a Super Bowl for them at all. Until we see it, obviously Jalen Hurts is welcome to prove me wrong. But I don't think that Jalen Hurts is like that guy that's like if they have him, they're going to the Super Bowl. He will be back, so he will get a chance to prove it. And
Yeah,
Eagles most
I'm.
likely
I'll
will
be
be the
waiting
number
to
one
see it.
seed. They'll most likely take that number one seed because the Giants. I don't know if the Giants are even playing their starters
Who
on
knows?
Sunday.
Who knows? They clinched by beating the Colts, and the Commanders lost. So, I mean, yeah, they may very well sit their
They're
starters.
not moving up or down, so it's they might set their starters, but it is a pride. It's a big rivalry game, so maybe pride. But yeah, I definitely think the team people are looking forward to facing right now are the Vikings, and then the scariest team is definitely the Niners. I mean, that's just the team you don't want to face.
I believe there's also the possibility that the Cowboys would play the Packers
Mm.
the first round if we're able to
If we win the NFC
um,
East, we would play Packers.
win the NFC East, then we would probably end up playing the Packers round one at home, which would be a
Amazing,
huge game.
amazing.
Huge
I think
game.
we need it. I think we need it because we had a terrible, embarrassing loss to them this year at Lambeau. We need a rematch. I think it should work out that way. Honestly, I'd love the number one seed, but let's be real, Nick. Be real with me here. when the Cowboys get a number one seed, they're not going to win the Super Bowl. They don't need expectations like that
I was
because we
about to
can't meet
say,
them.
yes. When they get that, I guess that level, that number one seed,
Or they're
then that
expected to
means
win.
that they should be the NFC team that ultimately comes out of the playoffs and goes to the Super Bowl. So would that happen? Absolutely not, because the Cowboys, their expectations are here, and this is where they meet, right? And I, I want to see a playoff win. Okay, that's what I want to see. I just
We
want to
need
see a
one.
playoff
I
win.
think though, here's what I think. I think it's been known for a while. Jerry Jones wants Sean Payton. I mean, the Cowboys fans want Sean Payton. Nobody's been sold on Mike McCarthy. I think if McCarthy does not take them to the NFC Championship game, he will probably lose his job to Sean Payton, which is, I mean, I don't root for anybody to lose their job, but Sean Payton is the coach that we want in Dallas.
It's
So
not about wanting Mike McCarthy to not have a job. It's more about I want a coach that can take the Cowboys to the highest level possible.
that is Sean
Because
Payton.
we have a great roster. We had a great roster last year, but a round one exit was pretty pathetic because on pen and paper, we were one of the best teams in the league, had one of the best defenses, had an incredibly high scoring offense, but then to lose round one was incredibly disappointing and very surprising to say the least.
Absolutely. But that's just other than the Cowboys moving. So the Cowboys and Eagles games and the Niners, those are the three that could move around a little bit. Other than that, other than the Packers getting in, obviously we're huge Lions fans on Sunday. We want the Lions to win, but Jared Goff going into Lambeau with everything on the line, I just have a hard time believing that Aaron Rodgers is going to lose that game. So I think it will be the Packers in, and we'll see. It'll be an interesting playoff in the NFC. But that is just some NFC
The
playoff
AFC is
race.
kind of set for a while. You know, you had the Bengals and then the Bills and then obviously the Chiefs, and those teams have been in it for a while.
It's
But
looking like the
I
Bills will
guess
probably keep the number one spot.
the rising star was the Jaguars because they started winning games when it mattered, you know, middle to end of season. And so there's the possibility of them sneaking in at the four spot, I believe,
They're
to win
winning
the
in.
AFC South
They're
if
winning
they
in,
beat the Titans this next week.
which they probably will. The Titans are on their third
I mean,
string quarterback, so
absolutely. Joshua, he had not played a game since, or I mean, he had not started it since 2020, and then he almost, okay, he didn't beat the Cowboys. All right, let's be real
did he
here. He
almost
didn't
beat
beat
the
the Cowboys.
Cowboys? He played a good
He put
game.
on,
He put on a good
he
game.
played a great game. The other thing was, I watching that game, there were a lot of drop balls. I will
Yes.
say that, but he's a serviceable backup. But will he win them the game next week? No,
I mean, I'll be
absolutely not.
honest. I'm rooting for him. I'm rooting for him. I don't want the Jags to be in because I don't like their. I know. I mean, I don't like the fact that they beat us, and then we got a lot of praise for that. So,
No,
I mean, I'm biased here. I'm a Cowboys fan. I don't want the Jags in. So it'll probably happen though.
what can you say?
But it is going to be an exciting playoff, and the cool thing about it is the timing works out that Nick and I are back in the studio when we
Absolutely.
have our
As soon as
one
we
year
get back,
and the playoffs. I mean, we hit both of them at the same time. Super pumped for all of it. But
perfect timing.
that's the news we got for y'all this week here at Under Review.
Absolutely. So, as we like to end our shows every week, because it's the same every week, nothing new, right? I've brought you a quote by the sheriff, okay? Peyton Manning.
Mm.
It's not wanting to win that makes you a winner. It's refusing to fail. And that's the truth.
Absolutely.
Okay, I want you to use that this week. Refuse to
Absolutely.
fail.
And we thank y'all for tuning in this week. Again, I just want to say, sending prayers for DeMar Hamlin. Thank y'all for tuning in.
Yellow. Okay, sweet. Because you froze right after you said prayers and then you froze. So that's why I was like, hurry up and end it. It's fine. I don't care.